Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official college football week number 13 picks and predictions, where I go through every single ranked college football game and give my final score prediction. Beginning with a top five matchup, it is Indiana traveling to Ohio State. Indiana, they're coming off a bye. They had that wobbly performance against Michigan. They're in a spot right now where they're probably going to finish 11-1 if they lose this game. The result of this game, the point difference, will be very important. If they get blown out by Ohio State, you could make an argument a lot of those 10-2 SEC teams, if they do finish 10-2, should be in the playoff. Now, looking at Ohio State, this is the traditional perfect game for Ohio State. You've got an Indiana team who might be overinflated. You're certainly way more talented than them. You're at home. This is technically a top five matchup. This reminds me of the Ohio State-Michigan State game a few years ago when Michigan State had Kenneth Walker and Ohio State easily won. This game I do think is going to be a little bit closer, but I'm guessing Ohio State significantly outgains Indiana. They're way more talented and they're at home, and they win this game and they cover the 12-point spread. Indiana's going to keep it close in the first half, but the Buckeyes will pull away. They'll be too much. It's a shame this game is at noon, but give me Ohio State 36-20 in that one. The next noon matchup, it is Miami hosting Wake Forest. Kind of a crappy noon game here. Miami, 24-point favorites coming off a bye. They lost to Georgia Tech before that, but they still are the favorite, or at least one of the favorites to win the ACC. The ACC will be interesting to see if Miami somehow wins out with just one loss and then loses in the ACC championship. Would they still make it? Probably not. I guess we'll see. Wake Forest is one of the worst teams in the ACC. I think Miami wins this game very easily. Cam Ward is still technically in the running for the Heisman, so I'm sure he'll get some solid stats to pad to that. And they will win this game 45-21. Will they cover the 24-point spread? I don't know. Miami normally scores a lot, but they also give up a lot. So I've got them winning this game by the exact spread, winning by 24. The next noon game, it is Ole Miss traveling to Florida. So this is a huge, huge game for Ole Miss. They obviously need to win it. It's must win. Florida is coming off that impressive win at home against LSU. This is going to be a hard game for Ole Miss. Ole Miss is sitting 9.5-point favorites. I think that's too much. I think Ole Miss escapes the swamp with a victory, but Florida's got a lot of momentum after the performance last week. The easy win against LSU. Give me Ole Miss, but it's going to be close, and it might be a walk-off field goal for them, 26-23 in that one. Another noon game, it is SMU. They are in the running in the ACC. They could potentially win that conference. They only have one loss right now. They're taking on Virginia in kind of a boring noon game. SMU is 9.5-point favorites. I think this game is going to be very slow. Give me SMU to win 23-17, but I'll take Virginia to cover in this one with an okay defense, 23-17 in that one. Moving on to a 12:45 game, it is Georgia hosting UMass. Georgia sitting 43.5-point favorites. We know Massachusetts is always one of the worst teams in all of FBS. In games like this, normally Georgia will not cover. It's very hard to give an actual prediction on the spread just because Georgia's going to be playing their third stringers in the fourth quarter. That's normally when the spread is decided because they'll be up like 42-0. And will they cover that? I think UMass ends up covering just because Georgia, in games where the spread is massive, they normally don't cover. 49-10, I will take Georgia to win this game. Obviously, Georgia will be moving up from number 12. They just beat the number 7 team, Tennessee. But these rankings are based off of the last week college football playoff rankings. They haven't updated them, obviously, but Georgia will be a top 10 team after that good win against Tennessee, and they're going to destroy UMass. They're going to get their starters out, and then next week they do have Georgia Tech, which should be a relatively easy win, although Georgia Tech's a decent team this year, but we would expect Georgia to finish 10-2 on the season. Next, we do have UTEP taking on Tennessee. Tennessee 41.5-point favorites. UTEP, the Miners, they're one of the worst teams in all of FBS, just like UMass. This game starting at 1 o'clock, a very random start time for college football. Normally, NFL games always start at 1 o'clock, not college games, but Tennessee, huge favorites. And Tennessee normally is the polar opposite of Georgia, so in games like this where they're massive favorites, they will cover, and I do think they cover this game. Even though their offense has been really, really lackluster in the second half of the season, they win this game 52-7, easily covering and dispatching a bad UTEP team. Moving on to the 3:30 games, it is Texas, currently the number 3 overall team in college football. When are we going to talk about Texas's lack of quality wins? I mean, I guess people already do it, but it's interesting, man. They really do not have a great win. They obviously have that loss to Georgia. We'll see what happens at the end of their season against Texas A&M. Imagine they lose that game. I mean, it's going to be hard for them to make the playoff. They just have no good wins, but they're sitting at number 3. They're taking on a Kentucky team. Normally in matchups like this where Texas is a big favorite at home, they will easily win and normally cover. So I've got Texas winning this game 38-13 and covering against a 4-6 Kentucky team. Texas was not impressive last week. It was raining on the road at Arkansas. I think they're able to win this game easily, but what an amazing schedule Texas got this year. I mean, we thought the game against Michigan was going to be a solid win for them, but obviously Michigan this year is not very good. They're probably going to finish 6-6. So Texas, they're in a weird spot, but as long as Texas wins out, they obviously will make the playoff, although we will see that game at the end of the regular season against Texas A&M. Next, we do have Penn State traveling to Minnesota. This is a sneaky game for Penn State. Penn State sitting at number 4 in the country. They easily crushed Purdue, who is the worst team in the Big Ten last week. Now they're taking on a Minnesota team who's kind of like, the Big Ten is just a bunch of average. Like once you get through the top 4 teams, it's just a bunch of average. And Minnesota is one of those teams that maybe they're on the upper level of average, if I had to guess, when it came to the Big Ten. So I think Penn State is in for a fight. I'm guessing this is going to be a close game. It's probably going to be tied at half. Maybe Minnesota goes up into the third quarter, but Penn State ends up prevailing. They win this game. Penn State is in a spot where if they do finish 11-1, they basically have no chance to make the Big Ten championship game just based off of tiebreakers. They do not have the tiebreaker with Ohio State. They're going to have to root for, I guess, Indiana to win, and then I think they would need Indiana to lose in week number 14 if Indiana beats Ohio State, because then Indiana would be undefeated. You've got Oregon, who I think has the tiebreaker over Penn State, although I don't know for sure. But Oregon did beat Ohio State. Penn State lost to Ohio State. So I think the only way that Penn State could go to the Big Ten championship is if Indiana beats Ohio State, and then Indiana would have to lose in week 14, but I don't think they're going to do that. But either way, Penn State is sitting where if they just finish 11-1, as annoyed as people are going to be, they will make the playoff at 11-1. Their analytics are good enough. The strength of schedule, even though they don't have a crazy good win, it's going to be good enough. So they just have to win these games, and I do think they will beat a Minnesota team that is a little bit underrated, so we'll see. Another 3:30 game, it is Arizona State. By the way, Arizona State is going to be ranked on Tuesday night when the rankings come out, but right now, they're not ranked just because this is based off of last week. And then BYU is probably going to be ranked like 13 or 14. If I had to guess, they're going to fall from number 6. BYU did lose to Kansas, but Kansas is a lot better than their record. I'm going to talk about Kansas here in a second, but BYU 3.5-point underdogs on the road at an Arizona State team who has only 2 losses. I will take ASU at home to win this game 30-26. BYU, this is what the Big 12 is. It's a mosh pit. They're all average. Give me Arizona State. I like their offense. I like their running back. They win this game. They cover barely in that one. Moving on to another 3:30 game. It is Colorado. They are in the running for potentially winning the Big 12. They're sitting -2.5 on the road at Arrowhead Stadium, taking on Kansas. Kansas, their analytics are way better than their record. They did lose a bunch of one-score games early in the season. If they would have won some of those one-score games, I mean, this could be a team that could be ranked. I mean, Kansas, they definitely have the talent, and that's why they're only 2.5-point underdogs. But give me, in this game, Colorado to win. Travis Hunter, he's going for the Heisman. Colorado ends up winning this game barely. I'll take them 29-28 in a higher scoring, fun game at 3:30 there. The next 3:30 game, you've got to be kidding me. The Citadel taking on Clemson. The Citadel, this game is an FCS team, so it's not going to have a game line right now. Clemson with a 99% chance to win. Give me Clemson to win 53-8. I think the Citadel, they're going to score a touchdown, miss the extra point, and then get a safety. So they'll get to 8 points. 53-8. That'd be a great score prediction if it ends up happening. There's a 0.001% chance that score prediction is right. The next game, 4 o'clock, another FCS team. It is Wofford taking on South Carolina. There are a lot of Gamecock fans that think South Carolina should make the playoff with 3 losses. I don't think it's going to happen. Wofford is a team. They think they can go in to South Carolina and win this game outright. They seriously do. They're not intimidated by South Carolina. They think South Carolina's offense is bad. They think they can hang with this team. They do. But I think South Carolina is just going to bludgeon them easily 43-3 in a blowout win against an FCS team. That South Carolina defense is too good. Moving on to these 7 o'clock games, ranked v. ranked. It is Army taking on Notre Dame. So here's the deal with Army. Army is in a position right now to where if they win out and they beat Notre Dame and then they beat Navy, they have you would figure, a chance to make the playoff. I mean, we know Boise State is ranked significantly higher than them right now. Boise State has a better strength of schedule. But if you beat Notre Dame with where Notre Dame is ranked and where they're thought of analytically, I don't know, man. They're 15.5-point underdogs. It's going to be very tough. As for Notre Dame's in a spot where it's probably, if they win out, they're going to be in. But their schedule is terrible, and it's not even their fault. Notre Dame scheduled USC, turns out they're not good. Scheduled FSU, turns out they're not good. I mean, they've scheduled teams that just have not been good. And you look at Navy, even when they faced Navy, Navy was ranked, and now Navy has lost multiple games and they're not very good either. So this is a game, normally in games like this where there's like a hyped up service academy team, they get crushed. I think Army's going to keep this respectable. This is a neutral site game at Yankee Stadium. So I will take Notre Dame to win this matchup by 10. That bad loss to Northern Illinois is an issue, but I do think if they win out, they probably will be in because their analytics are so good. The next 7 o'clock game we have, it is Boise State taking on Wyoming. Ashton Jeanty going for the Heisman. Boise State minus 23 in this one. They think they could potentially get that 4 seed, that first round bye. They believe they're better than the Big 12 champion. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see. Jeanty probably goes for 300 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. They win this game 44-13. There's a snowstorm expected in Wyoming for this game. 10 inches of snow. That should be a good one. Moving on to the 7:30 matchups. It is Alabama taking on Oklahoma. This is a primetime game. Or is this on the SEC network? No, I think this might actually be on ESPN, but Alabama sitting minus 14. Oklahoma has a talented team. We know this year their offense is really bad. We know this year their offense is really bad. Alabama's just going to bully them. I think they win this game easily. They cover the 14-point spread. It'll probably be close early. It's kind of an annoying game for Alabama going on the road in Norman at night, but Oklahoma just doesn't have the talent offensively to hang with Alabama this year, especially a Bama team that knows they have no margin for error. They win this game handily by 20 points. This is going to be a very interesting one. So it's Texas A&M traveling to Auburn. A&M is 2.5-point road favorites. Very, very close. This is basically a pick'em game. Texas A&M has 2 losses right now. They've got the huge end of the season rivalry game against Texas at home. They need to win this one, though, on the road at an Auburn team who is talented, who could certainly win a game like this. But I will take Texas A&M to win this game very close by 3 points. They barely cover the 2.5. Give me A&M. It'll set up a crazy Texas versus Texas A&M game. They win this game by 3. Moving on to the 7:45 game, I don't even think LSU is going to be ranked when the rankings come out on Tuesday after that loss to Florida, but they are sitting 9-point favorites taking on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's had a nice little run there. They beat Alabama, but their hype has kind of died down. I do think LSU, as long as Brian Kelly has not lost that locker room, they'll win this game pretty handily by 17, 37-20. They're just way more talented and they're at home. They win that one. And then the 8 o'clock game, this is the final ranked matchup. It is Kansas State, who, by the way, will also be ranked a lot lower when the rankings come out. They're 9-point favorites against Cincinnati. And very similar to LSU, I do think Kansas State wins this game pretty handily and is able to cover that 9-point spread. They win 35-17 in that matchup. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.